Here's a selfie board. We have to. Oh, so you actually were on school challenge in that same studio. So let's straighten the selfie board and you take a nice photograph. There she is, Susan Francis Brown. Thank you so much. Great. Actually on Romper Room. She tells me a little story that, when she was on Romper Room, the children were fighting about cherry milk and cookies. So I just want to know, were you one of the ones in the fight over cherry milk?
Right in there, somebody tried to steal my milk, and I but insisted that I needed to get my milk and my cookies, especially the cookies.
So do you remember anything else about Romper Room apart from the milk and cookies?
The fun that we had, the whole thing when you're singing and dancing and so on, that was fun.
Okay, great. Well, do enjoy the rest of the exhibition. Walk around, and I'm sure. Did you use our selfie board? Come, you have to take a photograph. Oh, somebody else went to the selfie board. Okay, later on we'll have someone else. Mark Ricketts, how are you?
Very good.
Okay, what are your first impressions? You're seeing all this wonderful stuff. I know some of it predates you. You weren't born yet, but what are your first thoughts?
No, I'm going to tell you my age, so you know I was born already. I think it's fantastic. I mean, just to be able to capture all this past, and then to see the personalities, and to be appreciative of just what transpired, when we were younger. And it's so good that it's retained.
Yeah.
And so we can go back in time, and we can also bring it current. So
Indeed.
it's wonderful.
Indeed.
And I want to commend you highly, and the rest of the team. And I think that a lot of people should come.
Yes, we're hoping. So spread the word. Let everybody
Oh, yes,
know
I
they should
will.
come to
No,
the
I
exhibition.
will. I mean, this is impressive.
Right. Did you look at the evolution of the technology on this side?
I did.
From the real cameras down to all the way down.
I saw that, and then I saw, the personalities, and the personalities over there. So it's quite impressive.
Right. And there's also the Kendall. There's also the Kendall exhibition on that side. If you get a chance, you could look at some of the images from the Kendall exhibition.
But I'm sure you're keeping us here all day.
Yes, ma'am.
Because why would we want to leave? I mean,
Because
this
there's
is
so much
impressive.
to see.
Yes,
Indeed.
it is.
Thank you so much, Mark Ricketts.
Listen, good. Thank you.
Right. So we're going to go right back to Faye Ellington in studio.
Thank you very much. I'm sitting with Beverly Anderson. That's what I'm going to call you this morning because of the history of the moment. Beverly Anderson, Mandy Duncan. You were part of the JBC days, early days. When did you join, and what were your roles and responsibilities?
I'm trying to remember when I joined. It would have been, I think, the first half of the 60s, maybe like 64. That's what I remember.
What were your roles and responsibilities?
Everything. How about everything? In those days, you did everything. If a newsreader couldn't come for it, they'd come for you. You just do everything. But I came into JBC in a very reluctant way, because I'd always seen myself as a behind-the-scenes person, like a producer. And I was working with Perry Hensel. Exciting times, because that is when the whole How Do They Come was developing, and Perry was writing, and he was so excited. And it was great to be there. I got into Perry because his admin or his secretary went on leave, and he said, Beverly, you're not doing anything. Why don't you just come help me out? And she never came back. Wow. I don't remember now who she is. And the help out continued for a few years. And then when this movie came to Jamaica, the one with Anthony Quinn, High Wind in Jamaica, I think it was, he invited myself and Barbara Blake to come back to Pinewood Studios. I'd never been to London before. And so I went to England, and I did a course in film technique, and Perry brought me.
What technique?
Film.
Oh, so you did a course in film technique.
And so Perry, in the end, I just had to get out of London. I couldn't manage it. The racism, everything was just horrible. So Perry brought me back home, and I started to do production work for him, behind the scenes work. At that time, we were doing mainly ads, You remember those days?
I remember those days a little bit. What is important about what you're telling me? We're here at this audiovisual exhibition, and as I had said to the gathering, this is not really about JBC, although JBC played such an important part. And you're now telling me of the part that Perry Hensel and his production company played.
Yes, because almost every team that came mainly from the US to do that kind of work had to work with him because he was the people who had to work, because who knew what they were doing and so on. And Perry was deep into that. And he was really working hard to get his film. What a mission. When I tell you, he had to do it, with no money. I mean, he had to do it. It was a whole...
The harder they come is a film. And shall I tell you, the harder they come. And just about 2 weeks ago, I looked at it again and just saw new things in it,
Anywhere I go, its scene is pointed out to me because of the role I played later in public life. The scene with the upper class, St. Andrew woman.
And how did you get in here?
Anyway, when I talk to you like this, I realize that my whole life has been a series of surprises into how I got into stuff. But I'm sitting there working with Perry, And you remember the name Derek Manderson? No. I'm so glad I remembered it. He became a good friend, and he said that he wanted me to interview for JBC. I said, me? I'm a behind-the-scenes person. I'm so shy, I could never do that. He never stopped and told me he was not going to stop until I said, yes, I would go on interview. Because I was a natural. He went on and on. So in the end, I said, all right, there, let me just go to this thing. And they gave me an interview on air, visual. Yes. And everybody in the studio just said, this is it? I said, what? That's how I got into JB.
You worked for both radio and television, and can you remember the names of the programs?
Wow. The one that comes to mind immediately is Young World. That may have been my first television program. As a matter of fact, somebody just came up to me and said that she has pictures of Young World, so I'm going to get some pictures.
Yes.
And then later on, of course, what we became known for was Leonie and I, Jamaica Woman, which was a daily program. We brought in people from outside because we'd have like a Jamaica Woman coffee club. And on a Saturday morning when we were not on air, we had this group of people just sharing anything they wanted to share. And then we would edit. I heard about editing today. Leonie taught me a lot of what I knew. And you just see the reels of stuff on the floor and we're cutting and carrying for hours, because we'd cut up those Saturday morning conversations into like 5-minute bits and play them during the week. I don't think anybody's in that, but it was very successful.
Jamaica Woman was the name of that.
Jamaica Woman.
Well, Beverly, thank you so much for talking with me. Is there one final thing that you would want to say about the audiovisual history of this country? Because yes, we know it's not just JBC, and you've kind of bridged, because I love the story about working with Perry Hensel, that side, the commercials, the films, the movies. Anything else?
No, but you know what I really want to say? I want to say what the feeling was like working in a station like JBT. I can't find the words to describe it, except to say we were you said it, we were so much family and more. I mean, I would close the station at 11 o'clock or whenever it closed and say to the operator across the glass, you don't feel like going to Port Antonio? I'm saying, yes, ma'am, we're ready.
And that lingers into our generation as well.
Of course, I don't know, it's maybe because, especially television, you're so dependent on the team because you can do your best thing.
But if light not there, sound not there, camera not there, set not there.
Or if it vex, even if it vex, it is sound man.
Yes, the team. Thank you so much.
It really was so rich. The whole island, you're going all over the place when we start to have outside broadcasts and all that. But you mentioned earlier what I remember also, which is more to your point, is the dream, the vision that Norman Manley had for a station like this.
What was the dream?
The dream, as I remember it, and I'm going to go back home and research it now. He wanted a station that would build up the culture as development. I was talking to Debbie Hicklin. Yes, and she just studied it. She understands it so well, and between him and Edna Manley, I mean, they had this vision, because remember, one of their, no, not Norman, Douglas Manley's wife was Carmen Manley. Yes. who was heavily into the development of the culture. And when you see what he had in mind and how it could help develop us as a nation, and, you know, again, it was a dream deferred in a way.
Not really, because the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation did live up to that dream, and the PBCJ now is carrying it on as best they can, both with the archival material and the new material. Miss Bev, thank you so very, very much. Thanks for being here.
Can I just tell you about you now? I don't know what to call you, and the way you have evolved and continue to be evolving. It's lovely to see somebody, you know, younger than us, and so, 'cause you are, you know.
I am younger than you are. Yeah. Thank you so much, Beverly. Beverly Anderson, Manley Duncan. Thank you. It's so good to see. I am sitting next to history. I'm sitting next to the first face that was shown on JBC television, Miss Fisher. So happy to be with you. Just tell us your full name and what year you joined the JBC.
Okay, I was Miss Fisher then,
Yes.
but now I am Joyce Perry Jacobs.
All right, but you're Joyce Fisher way back
I was
then.
Joyce Fisher way back then.
What year was way back then?
Well, I joined JBC in 1960 because I started in radio. I worked with the accounting department. And following the accounting department, I went into programs, radio program. Worked with, I don't know if anybody remembers Bill Pilgrim.
Of course I know the name. I didn't meet the
Yes.
gentleman, I don't think, but I know
Yes.
the name. Bill Pilgrim.
Yes. And
Who are some of the other people in radio you worked with? I know I'm stressing your memory now.
well, I can remember the announcers.
Yes.
Anybody remembers what was Joy's last name? Joy.
I am not certain. A tiny lady.
Yes.
Yes, but I don't remember her last name because
Yes.
she was before my time, but I heard about her.
Willoughby.
Never Willoughby.
Never Willoughby.
Yes.
Dwight Wiley.
Dwight Wiley, who was my first general manager
Right,
here
I had
when
left
I
back-
joined in 1974. He had come back from the BBC.
Right.
Yes.
Adrian Robinson.
Oh gosh, yes. He gave me my first commercial when I was 13 in
Yes.
high school. Yes.
So I was here with all those people.
So how you made the switch to television?
So when we were getting television, when it was being set up, and I suppose they had gotten to the point where they were ready to do test runs. One evening I was in the lobby of the building, radio building, and Mickey Hendricks, who was the general manager then, came up the hallway and said, he saw me sitting out there with some other people, and he said to me, Joyce, I need you to do something for me. And I said to him, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It was after 5 o'clock, it's time to go home. But I was going to play netball. I used to play netball with Mal Spence's wife. And she was going to give me a ride. They were going to, so I said to him, I'm sorry. He said, come, I need you to do something for me. So he took me into what was, I think it was Studio 3 in those days in radio, in the radio building. And the next thing I know, I was told to sit, and cameras are all over the place. But I had nobody told me what was happening. So, they told me to do stuff, and I did it. And when it was all over, I came out into the lobby, and everybody's clapping. And I'm saying, what's going on? And that is when I found out exactly what had happened.
So what did you say? Can't remember your
I
first
didn't,
words?
no, they didn't
just your
ask me
face.
they didn't ask me to
Just
say
you.
anything. They just asked me just my face.
Yes.
And to smile and,
Yes.
to.
Yes. Okay. We're going to cut a little bit here.
Yes.
You hear? We are here at the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation old studio, Studio B, which is now a studio that the PBBC, could you just take it from the top for me? What do they call it, studio again? National one? I'm here at Studio National, what used to be the JBC Studio B, and with me is Hugh Small. Now, as far as I know, you never worked at the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation.
No,
you never served on the board of the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation. And this exhibition, this audiovisual exhibition, which is highlighting some of the work of JBC, but other agencies were involved. I can't understand. Why do I have you here? Why am I talking to you? What do you have to do with the JBC? Shall I tell them or will you tell them?
When I was invited, they told me that they would like me to come, especially because there's a photograph of me in the exhibition speaking to the workers of JBC during the JBC strike.
Let's talk about that. What year are we talking about?
We're talking about January 1964.
And that strike background has to do with the newsroom.
It has to do with the newsroom.
Give me a bit more information on that.
Well,
I know there were two members of staff in particular.
yes, George Lee and Adrian Rodway.
Yeah, what happened really?
They wrote a story that did not meet approval in official circles.
Official meaning the government of the day.
Well, the board was the front for the government.
And let's just remind everybody that the board is always the front of the government, whichever administration was in power
yes.
for the Jamaica Broadcasting
Yes,
Corporation.
and the chairman of the board was Harvey Eniver, who had been my mentor at Jamaica College, who had played an important part in my development as a student at Jamaica College before I went and studied law in 1960. So I was very concerned because these two, I was working in the National Workers Union, and these two members of the newsroom, who were news professionals, were dismissed, and they were not given the right to have a hearing before they were dismissed. And that led to the strike. And I was working with the NW, I was a legal officer, and one of the members of the newsroom was Patricia DeVerney. Patricia DeVerney became my first wife and the mother of my only children. I met her on the picket line at JBC.
Ah, you met also the first, go ahead.
Yeah, actually met her in London before,
Yeah.
but I really got to know her.
On the picket line.
Yes.
Lots of things can happen on the picket line, eh?
Yes.
Like meeting Miss Fisher.
Yes, I
Joyce
remember.
Fisher, who was the first face on JBC,
Yes.
not the first voice, but the first face on JBC
yes.
television. So do you have any recollections of
I remember-
interacting with her?
I did not realize that it was Joyce Fisher, who I was sitting beside earlier. It is when you referred to her as Joyce Fisher that I remember her, because she did come out on strike, although she was not a member of the union. But she took a position which she can explain to you in her own words, of principle, that she was not going to cross the picket line.
And she was not a member of the union, but she did tell me off camera that after that strike, she became the chief union delegate.
Yes, yes.
Was that your doing?
No, by that time I had been fired from the NW.
How come?
That I'm writing about that.
Really?
Yes.
What, did that JBC strike and the role you played cause you to be fired?
Not directly, but certainly when it happened, the Employers Federation and others took the NW to task and said that the principle that you're fighting for in the JBC strike, you did not allow Hugh Small, because I wasn't given a right to a fair hearing before I was dismissed.
You have some interesting stories to tell. When can we expect the book?
I've been writing, but I'm a little bit shy about putting my thoughts and experiences into public consumption.
Well, you can choose what you put there and what you don't put there.
Yes.
Yeah. But the JBC story, that part of history is very, very important. those two professional news persons wrote the story and they were taken to task for it. Were they, well, you didn't tell me how it ended for them.
Well, there was an inquiry, and the inquiry, I think we found that they were wrongfully dismissed. By that time, I was under a great deal of stress because Pat and I wanted to set up a family. I was dismissed from the NW, and I had to turn my attention in 1965 to getting into law practice. But I had a long association with JBC after that, because many of the members of this studio, of the newsroom and of the staff were friends, Hugh Gentles, who came out of that strike experience, Jean Barnes, who had to be very careful because she was a member of the staff at JBC, but her husband was a captain in the army. In the army,
JDF.
yes.
Well, who became Colonel Barnes.
Yeah, and there were other personalities from broadcasting, like Kerry Robinson, who is Pat's first cousin. So I've had a long association with JBC and a great admiration for the work that's been done by people like Wycliffe Bennett, who I knew very well, and going down the years into some of the other people who have now gone on to other news media.
Did you interact with Dwight Wiley at all?
I knew Dwight well. As a matter of fact, I bought a car from Dwight.
He was my first general manager
Yes,
at JBC in
yes.
1974.
Yes, he had an interest in motor cars, and I bought a car from Dwight. I knew Dwight very well.
That's right. And they were reinstated in their jobs, the two news persons, were they?
No,
They were never reinstated.
no.
And that is what you had been fighting for.
Well, that's what the union was fighting for, but by the time the inquiry was taking place, I was now more concerned about my own,
Yes.
myself, and
Were you the
former
only
J-
lawyer out there on the picket line with them, the JB at the strike?
I was the only lawyer on the picket line, but of course, by the time it went to the inquiry, there were several other lawyers that became involved. Vivian Blake, I remember most definitely, and other lawyers at the inquiry.
Were there any politicians from the opposition who were out there on the picket line?
Well, some of them eventually became part of the opposition, but they weren't at the time.
They were union people at the time.
There were workers, people who were sympathetic to the workers' causes.
And you don't wish to share who some of those might have been?
Fear, you should have warned me when you asked me this question.
We can edit that, or
Yes.
we can leave
Yeah,
that.
no. I mean, I'd have to. I want to be fair. I don't want to make. I'm not making a political point.
Yeah.
But George Lee went on to become the mayor of Portmore. Yeah.
Indeed. Councillor and mayor.
Yeah, and I worked very close with him even before he got involved in local politics when he was living in New York. He was very active in Jamaican organizations there. I interacted with him.
So he went on to another kind of public service after he left the Jamaica Broadcasting
Yes,
Corporation.
but before he came back.
Yes,
Yeah.
before he came back. Thank you. Any last thing that you might recall being in the era, that time, that you'd like to share?
Well, I'm writing, and I will share it then.
Okay,
Yeah.
says he, cautiously, as a good lawyer would be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate you coming by. As I said at the start, not a member of the JBC, not a member of the board of any administration of the JBC, but played an important role to do with justice and fairness at the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation. That strike was in 1960. Finish it off? 3? Was it?
The strike was in 1964.
64, beg your pardon.
Yeah.
January 1960.
But I had come home in 1963
Yes.
and witnessed the launching of JBC.
So you know that. You knew that when that happened. Thank you so much. Hugh Small, attorney at law. Thank you.
Thank you.
You good now?
Navigate this interwoven landscape, discovering how every portfolio and agency under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation play a crucial role in national development, from housing to land. NWC, why I don't have any water in my tap? To infrastructure and investment. So the government is not giving away any asset.
No, Dini.
All right.
Not at all.
Let's unravel the threads of success as we explore the MEGJC matrix.
The one camping tent. I'm showing why I'm about.
Ended up here over here, son of a lift up now.